Welcome back to the channel, guys. Hope everyone's doing well. Today is going to be something a little bit different. Normally we do a lot of e-bike stuff on this channel, but the funny thing is this channel actually started out doing a whole myriad of stuff, and one of the things was drones. So we're going to be kind of getting back in, reigniting, well, I've been reigniting my passion for drones since I started way back 3 years, probably 4 years ago, when I started out with like little toy grade drones, messed around with those, done a few videos back on the channel. You can probably go and check them out. They're still there. And then I kind of went on to like a Phantom 4, and mainly for like aerial stuff, kind of getting aerial shots for the videos. But now, having met up with Neil from NJ Tech Channel, as you've seen, I've been helping him build his e-bikes and stuff. He has kind of reciprocated a lot of the favours that I've given him, you know, trying to sort his e-bike builds out. And basically, because we've been hanging out loads lately, he's got me completely hooked on FPV. Cheers, mate. Like I needed another really intense hobby to lose myself in. So let's try and show you what I've been messing around with so far. Neil's hooked me up with this. This is basically a Halo RC guitar pick frame, and it's a collaboration between Neil and Halo RC. It's like a 2 to 3 inch micro frame, and what you've got on here is a DJI, well, this is the Cadex Vista, so basically it's a full digital system. It works with the DJI goggles over there, which are just absolutely crazy compared to running analog. I mean, I can't believe the quality of the video. So I've got this all set up. This runs on these little batteries here. I've got a load of batteries and a slightly bigger one as well, which I'm experimenting with for longer run times. I've actually installed a GPS unit on here as well, which is pretty cool, because it allows you to then, you know, do kind of GPS recovery if things kind of go a bit wrong, which, you know, they shouldn't do if you're not flying line of sight. But I've been flying line of sight aircraft for a long time, so I don't really generally have a problem with line of sight, even though this is tiny and super maneuverable. Yeah, so I've got the GPS on there, and this is also running an 868 megahertz crossfire receiver in there, and we have got here the rare as rocking horse poo Tango 2 radio. So this is like a game. To Tango 2. Thank you. So this is like a game controller style radio, and because it runs on 868 megahertz, the signal is less prone to kind of interference, and well, not interference, but the penetration of the signal is much better. Whereas your higher frequencies tend to sort of, you know, not penetrate objects. So this range on this radio is pretty insane. I mean, I've tested 2.4 on some of the other drones I've got, the other racing drones, which Neil's left me, and I'll lose range and hit a fail-safe on a certain point of the field that I fly at. And with this one, it just keeps going and going and going and going. So I've just stuck the battery on this little guy to show you the telemetry. I don't know if you can see this on here, but we've basically got this lovely OLED display on this Tango 2 is really nice to look at. You can actually see the telemetry coming through. Maybe you can't because it's flickering around. So this is completely configurable. It'll also announce everything out as a voice as well, which is pretty cool. And then you've got multiple pages which you can configure. So I've got GPS on there as well. Let's move away from that so you don't see my location, which is probably not accurate anyway, because this hasn't got a clear view of the sky. So most of the telemetry is actually coming through to the DJI FPV goggles as well. There's a certain amount of data that you can actually configure on here. It's not the same as your usual analog goggles. You can see the fat sharks over there, but you can get most of the information on the display. So like battery voltage, the battery voltage of the drone, the distance from the home point if you've got the GPS connected, and also, you know, number of satellites, speed of the drone, which is quite useful. That's one of the things that I actually wanted to have shown. So adding a GPS allows you to obviously get the speed. Lots of the sensor information shown in the goggles, much like what you'd expect if you were flying something like this, the DJI Mavic Mini. Another thing that I've been messing around with, because you don't get a battery with the FPV goggles, so it's like 500 quid for a pair of goggles, FPV digital DJI goggles, and you don't get a battery, which, yeah, it seems a bit crazy, but you know, you're supposed to use your kind of a flight battery or something to power these. These run on between, and it's like 8 volts upwards, or I think it might go down a little bit lower. So I have actually grabbed one of these Furious FPV batteries, which is quite nice because it kind of just fits on the back of the goggles strap. And this little unit is pretty cool because you put two 18650s in here, the 18650 cells, and then it regulates 8.4 volts out. And you get this nice kind of like OLED display on here, which shows you individual cell voltages. Again, I don't know if you'll see that because it's the OLED displays seem to get messed with this frame rate of the camera. But it shows you either cells in there, either voltage. Very, very cool. And it shows you how much current and how much capacity you've taken out of the battery. But it won't blimmin', it's standard, it won't blimmin' let you charge it. There's no charge point on. And I didn't realise this when I got this. I thought by nature of the beast it would just have like a micro USB charging point on it or something. But it hasn't. So I've had to modify this. I've created this little hole on the side of the case, and I've just put a jack plug. That's all I had. I didn't have the socket. It would have been better with a socket, but it's fine. It works. And I've also put a balancing connector on the side here, so you can just literally plug it into the charger that I'm using, which is the D2. So I've made a little charge lead, and that can easily be charged up. And this is running for quite a while on these batteries. About I think they're 3,000 milliamp hour 18650s. So that runs nicely. So this is what my digital FPV setup looks like. How compact is that? You've got tiny little controller. I mean, this almost looks toy grade. So it's going to kind of, float under the radar. People aren't going to see some massive, great, 5-inch quad ripping around and start getting concerned at a park. You see this and you think probably it's a toy, but far from it. You've got a HD video goggle, digital HD DJI system, absolutely stunning video quality. I can't tell you how good it looks in person. It's hard to show you on a camera because you can't really look through the lens. But and then we've got obviously the little guitar pick, which is fantastic, so manoeuvrable, great for kind of blasting around. And if you do crash it into the ground, it's not going to break too much. You might break a prop. I've got hundreds of blooming props. I ordered hundreds of props because I knew I was going to be stuffing it. So at the moment I'm flying this around in horizon mode and acro mode a little bit. I'm sort of testing the water. I'm trying to get onto acro full time, but it is a steep learning curve for me because I've been used to some kind of stability on drones, but I'm getting there. But how crazy is that? That setup there, you can fly anywhere. You're not restricted by any of the DJI stuff. You haven't got to plug a phone in or do anything like that. You can just literally go and fly, have a rip, and learn some really good FPV skills. And also just have some fun looking around because the quality of the footage is just, I just can't tell you how good it is. You can just go and look at stuff that you wouldn't normally be able to do. It's fantastic. We're here. Electric scooters are the best thing that ever happened to FPV drones. Right, here we are. Great place for flying. I like doing a bit of FPV around these goalposts as well. It's pretty cool for learning. And there's enough room to mess up. That's the good thing. So there you go, guys. Such a lot of fun. I can't believe the range on that system as well. Like with the Tango 2, you know, I was just buggering off into fields like first field, second field, over the other side. It was still saying 100% signal back in the goggles as well. And the goggles, the signal from the goggles is just absolutely. I mean, there's no problem at all. All that footage was basically recorded on the FPV side, on the actual goggles themselves. So you've got the little SD card in here. So everything was coming back from the drone over radio and recorded in here, which is just crazy. The quality is crazy, and there wasn't any blocking or anything like that. Just solid signal throughout that whole flight. I mean, you can't record on the drone itself. So because the Caddx Vista is so small, that's the camera and the little VTX. It hasn't got an SD card slot on it, so you can't record video directly, which would obviously give you the highest quality. But recording it straight to the goggles is just, I mean, it's unbelievable that you can actually use that footage, and it actually looks fairly good. 720p, I think it is, but the frame rate is 120 frames per second. I think you can configure it, but obviously this video is at 30 frames a second, so you're losing some of the kind of like, you know, frame rate there. But so impressed. I mean, as a noob to this sort of thing, this drone, I'd say, you know, if you've flown kind of, you know, the DJI stuff, you'd be fine with something like this. And actually, it's a really good way to learn, because you're not going to stuff it. It's not going to be too expensive if you break something. Most of the time, you're just going to break a prop. You could add the GPS unit on the top, like I've done, which gives you a little bit of a fail-safe. Like if you go too far, you're not going to have a problem with this crossfire system. I think you're going to bottle before that does. It's going to go so much further than you're going to be comfortable flying, and also it's going to outstretch the goggles as well. So if you wanted to add a fail-safe on there, so that normally the fail-safe will just drop the drone out of the sky, which is a little bit concerning, but what are the options? You know, there's not really much else you can do other than, I mean, you can't hold a position or do anything like that. But with GPS, you can actually have it just start to return to home. Eventually, you'll pick the signal back up from the drone and you can just take over. So all in all, guys, super stoked with this setup. It's just brilliant. Whack it in a backpack. 3 things: the drone, the controller, which is small, obviously, as well. It looks toy grade, but it ain't. And then the goggles, obviously, the goggles are the most expensive bit. You know, so that's an investment if you want to do that. But I mean, once you go to digital, I don't think there's really any way you're going to go back to analog. So, you know, this sets the precedent for it. I've also seen quite a few kind of little drones, or a couple of little drones that have popped up that are ready to go. Because I built this, and obviously Neil helped me out. And I, you know, obviously doing the EBIKE stuff, I can do all the soldering and all that stuff. So you are going to know how to solder. You are going to need to know how to solder if you are going to try and build one of these yourself. But it's not hard, guys, really. It's not difficult. As long as you get some pointers from online, watch some channels like Neil's, and I've been watching Joshua Bardwell's channel as well. Loads of information there to help you kind of, you know, get set up, especially with the GPS, because that's a little bit more tricky. But, you know, things like that, if you're used to sort of building aircraft, and if you've ever done this sort of thing before, you shouldn't have a problem. But there are ready to go, I think, bind and fly quads out there, so you can get something like this with a GPS. And they're saying something like you're getting, like, there's a particular model that's saying you're getting about 18 minutes flight time. You get about 4 minutes flight time on this if you hoon it. But I have got some batteries, a couple of batteries which I'm testing out, which are a little bit bigger. This carries them fine, up to 1,000 milliamp hour. Neil will probably be going, well, no, you don't want to run that on there. But if you want to get, you know, a really good flight time and you want to do some long range stuff, and you're not particularly bothered about sort of doing crazy acrobatics, which I can't, because I'm, you know, I've only just started out in this. So I quite like sort of defaulting back to my kind of old school DJI thing, where I just hoon it off 3 miles away and go and have a look at what's on the other side. Right, guys, it's Andy from the future. I'm just going to insert this because I forgot to mention it. This sort of system isn't limited to where you can fly. So like a DJI Mavic or something like that, you can basically, you know, when you put that up, it will tell you you're near an airport, you can't take off, you can't do this, you can't do that. Whether you like it or loathe it, it's kind of there, and it's kind of the reality of flying drones these days. You know, you might just rock up and you see a sign says you can't fly a drone, you know, you can't do this, you can't do that. Yeah, basically I've had this problem, and this is one of the reasons why I've decided to start building my own drones, because I think there's a lot of restrictions that are just way over the top for something that's so light, like a 250 gram drone, which you don't have to register. So that's another great thing about this class of drone. You don't have to register it and you don't have to do your drone code thing, which I'd advise you do anyway, because it's useful to know and just show that you've done it. But you know, because of the size, yeah, you don't need to do it. But this system is completely unrestricted. Obviously, it doesn't use a phone app. It doesn't notify control towers, all sorts of, you know, stuff like that, which is big brother stuff. I mean, it's crazy. It is actually crazy what DJI are doing right now and how it communicates with the rest of the, you know, the ecosystem, or, you know, the aerospace system. It's pretty mad. I've had a little brush in with that myself. I'm not going to go into details, maybe in another video. But anyway, back to what I was saying. So if you want to do that, you can just stick a bigger battery on. Otherwise, just use the smaller batteries, which also don't break the bank as well. They're quite cheap to run. So, you know, this is a great little setup for kind of, I'd say, it would be a great beginner setup, really, for just practicing FPV or getting into it. Yes, you're going to stuff it a few times, as you've seen at the beginning of the video, where I've been messing around in the wrong mode and all sorts of things, still getting to grips with it, but it's still going strong, so you shouldn't have a problem. Anyway guys, that's about it for this one. I'm actually going to build a Halo Osiris next, put one of those together, so that'll be even higher speed and a bit bigger and kind of a bit more serious. So this will be interesting. It will all unfold on the channel. I'll do more videos, and meanwhile I'm just going to put them in practice, because that's what it needs. Just a lot of practice to, you know, get some smooth flying in and capture some great footage. So, hope you enjoyed this one, guys. Be back soon with another video. I'll catch you again soon.